Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to. Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome after the lunch. I hope you enjoy it. You use it for network and some refreshment. And now we will continue with the inspiration from abroad. And actually, there will be 3 presentations in this afternoon session. The first will be from the Commission. I'm really looking forward. They will present us with the result of ex post and midterm evaluation from the Commission point of view. We already heard a little bit about it from the first intervention from Peter Berkowitz in this morning, but now we will hear more. And then there will be a colleague from Estonia telling us more how they use evaluation actually and how evaluation are linked to the budgeting and spending review, because I think it's very inspirational for us here in Czech Republic. We are not so advanced so far, and I hope we'll get some inspiration from this presentation. And last but not least, there will be a presentation from a colleague from World Bank, because they did the first experimental evaluation in the Czech Republic on the operational program Justice Transition. And because in this new provision regulation we already have from the Commission for the program 2028 after, and we already know there will be higher push and pressure on quantitative method, especially on experimental method. We invite colleagues from World Bank to share the experience actually from 2 concrete evaluation on 2 programs within these operational programs. So I'm really looking forward to this presentation as well. So please let me welcome. Okay, so please let me welcome first our distinguished guest, Enrica Pesaresiho from European Commission, who is Deputy Head of the Evaluation Unit within DG Regio. So, Enrico, the floor is yours.
Thanks.
And here's your presentation. Yeah.
You can hear me, right? Hello. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining this very interesting conference. Thank you for Jana for inviting me again. This is my 2nd time here. It's always a pleasure to come here to beautiful Prague and to join this conference, which is always a nice event in autumn. Not only because you managed to visit Prague in a moment of the year where there are not too many tourists. So in my introduction, Jana already told you what I am going to say. We published earlier this month, my director, Peter Berkowitz, mentioned this morning, our own evaluations. So this is the fund level evaluations, the ex post for the 14-20 periods that some of the speakers this morning mentioned as very past. And I think I can agree with that, though many of the findings I think would also be relevant for the ongoing for the programming that will start again very soon, and also the midterm evaluations of 21-27. These are 2 large-scale exercises, a bit different in nature and structure. In my presentations, we will go through a bit what we did and the results we found. My presentation will focus in essence on what we do and will not hinge too much on the future and how the findings are reflected on the MFF proposals, on experimentation and so on. We can discuss, of course, this in the Q&A that will follow or also at the end of the panel. But I would like to take this little window to guide you through a bit what findings we have and how we funded. So there is a part, let's say, on the methodologies and one more that is probably relevant about the findings. Briefly on this one, these are our regulatory obligations. Possibly you're familiar with that. They stem from the Common Provision Regulations, the 1421, that governs the past programming period, and also the evaluation in relation to that. And the midterm evaluation article 45 of the 21-27 Common Provision Regulation, Both of them, as you can see, make explicit reference to the better regulation criteria: effectiveness, efficiency, relevance, coherence, a union added value. We will touch upon each of these during my presentation. With respect to the ex post evaluations, also included in the evaluation, there is the analytical basis for the evaluation of the REACT-EU package. We also have this regulation which also requires an evaluation based on those same criteria. These evaluations was part of a dedicated study and also took part in the document that we prepared, our staff working document, and which also served the basis following the REACT-EU regulation of the report that we submitted to the Parliament and Council in relation to the measures and the flexibilities that were introduced to cohesion policy funds for addressing the crisis of the COVID-19 pandemic. With respect to the midterm evaluations, there is also an element of supporting the midterm reviews of funds, something that is partly done, very much ongoing also, thanks to the new review that was introducing new objectives. And we hope and we actually see that our findings also fed a bit into those discussions with member states and managing authorities. A brief overview of what was done. The ex post programming period ended in 2023. We are now facing the closure of the projects. Being this an ex post evaluation, we have tried to put as much emphasis as possible on impact assessment and on the evaluation of the impact of the policy on economic variables and on the ground. And this was also based on a large-scale studies exercise where 13 different work packages that you can consider like as working blocks were put together. Most of them were actually contracted externally. Some were carried out internally by my unit. And this work started at the beginning of 22 and was completed effectively this year with the review of the Regulatory Scrutiny Board of the Commission. Midterm evaluation is a slimmer exercise, and it was also implemented much quicker. It was done between last year and this year. The implementation is the period from the beginning of the programming period until the end of 2024, as per our regulatory requirement. And given that the purpose of the exercise is different, and also implementation, as we will see in a second, is not that advanced. This focused very much on programming, on taking stock of implementation, and also of looking at alignment with political priorities, either those at the type of programming or those emerging in the course of the period. One study was carried out in this context, again submitted to the Regulatory Scrutiny Board. I won't tell what this is, but just telling you that this is the body of the Commission that take care of verifying quality and consistency of results, and we got a positive outcome for both. This is something that doesn't always happen, so we took this as a mark of quality of our results. In brief, on the right-hand side, you see a bit what we got, that our policy delivered according to very strict objective, and it fosters sustainable growth and also convergence between different regions. There was a discussion in the panel this morning about spillovers and how to consider inequalities. Some on our work also touch a bit on that. Another finding is also that the impact is uneven and varies. It varies across regions, not just on the basis of the amount of funding disbursed, and it varies also across the different thematic areas and thematic objective. Finally, what we found, and I will speak quite of this in my conclusions, that the effectiveness of the policy is conditional on certain economic and institutional factors. Briefly on this one, so the 13 were package, 12 were contracts, some thematic and some cross-cutting. There was also preparation of a project-level database. This is what is called Work Page H2, which was a first attempt, maybe in this moment a bit outdated, to seek project-level data. As you well know, under the 1420 programming period, there was no obligations of submitting project level or operation level data to the Commission. Data come to us rather in aggregated way per program, per member states. With these exercises, we went back, or rather we paid somebody to go back to managing authorities and beneficiaries to reconstruct at the disaggregated level the deployment of the funds for analytical reason. We did our own macroeconomic modeling, Romolo. I am sure that many of you who attend this conference regularly are familiar with this. I will show a bit of results. We carried out 5 counterfactual impact evaluation studies, all commissioned to academics. Some of them more of the, say, traditional type, some other a bit more innovative. And we also make the use of findings from member states evaluation, because we do see this exercise as an exercise where we evaluate the funds, but in order to evaluate the funds in their entirety properly, we also have to rely on the specific evidence that is dug out by the evaluation units in the different member states, including the Czech Republic, in order to also to make best use of all the evidence available. Finally, we did a review of the academic literature and the literature related to the grey literature, SADES report published by the World Bank, the OECD, and so on. Methodologic-wise, this is a mix of the usual thing. There's research, surveys and interviews. Almost each of the work packages which were thematic as a survey or some interviews integrated into them. Stakeholder consultation, compulsory, according to the better regulation guidelines. Case studies, including case studies in the Czech Republic. And of course, data and econometric analysis. Data being both coming from, let's say, our funds, and also macroeconomic data coming from Eurostat and other public sources. We look a bit at the ex-post evaluation, very briefly on the absorption rate, 99% of payment rate achieved at December of 24. So in essence, the entire of the programming amounts were in essence absorbed by the end of programming period. This called for successful implementation. If you look at the indicators, you get a bit of a different picture. The staff working document develops a bit on this. But in terms of payment, you can see very much, maybe the interesting part on this is the curve, that you see the early start. So, you know, considering year one, the beginning, what you see here in this graph is 1420, red line, as compared to the previous programming period, which is the blue one, and REACT-EU being the dotted line. You see that implementation for each year was a bit lower, and there was a peak at the end. But in the end, you see very much the same pattern of a, you know, a slower start from year 1 to year 5, with implementation intensifying in the last year of programming. This is, of course, an aggregate picture, so for single member states, it may look a bit different, but this is very much the picture we have with. I'm sure it resonates for those of you who work in managing authorities or actually implement funds. On the findings, I mean, this is very much of a summary of what we put in the report. There are, you know, different ways of looking at our findings. We paid a lot of attention to the, in a way, sectorial findings and evidence from thematic areas. And we also had a part about macroeconomic impact and effects on growth. In terms of headline figures, you can find some of these in the slides. For SMEs, improvements. Our contractors for the SMEs work package carried out also an econometric analysis, which actually confirmed that that receiving EU funds in increase the chances of survival of SMEs and also improve their key performance indicators, including revenue, improvement in transport networks, positive contributions to water quality, network protection, and other gas-reducing emissions. Then going down, we get a bit to the main finding, which concerns administrative capacity. I have a dedicated slide on this. For now, I would like to say that administrative capacity turned out to be possibly the main determinants of the effectiveness of the funds, and the lack of it is actually the main cause of delays and issues in implementation. We also did find some delays in large-scale infrastructure projects. This also translated with realizations in the indicators for this type of project, which was well below the others. I mean, delays in these areas are in a way structural and in a way also understandable, but our evidence actually showed that some of them are related to issues that could be improved, as, for instance, those related to public procurement. This type of issues did not take place, or actually our analysis in ICT investments, in particular in relation of broadband, did find lower evidence of this, and overall we saw an increase in high-speed internet access that was related to the deployment of fiber and other high-speed technologies, which was co-financed by our funds. I will leave the numbers of the right for you reading. I don't need to say this, but this is certainly in the staff working document, and you will find evidence for your thematic areas of interest. Maybe a word on this slide, which concern a bit the more technical stuff that we did. So I mentioned that we did Romolo, and we also did counterfactual impact evaluation. For this, we relied on technologies such as regression discontinuities design, as we also did in 713. But we also tried to reach a bit at the frontier of economic analysis, or rather, we tried to bring into the evaluation of our funds also methodologies and instruments which were not yet properly used. One was synthetic control methods. Another one was definition of counterfactual based on machine learning method applied to pre-treatment period in time series. I could speak a lot about this part. I will not now. Maybe if there is a question, I would be happy to develop. For those of you interested in the more technical part, I really recommend you to read our studies, which we will publish very soon. This is not yet out, but it will be hopefully still this week. What I would like to point out here is that the use of different methods based on the same data by different experts largely converged in the finding that the policy, that cohesion policy fund has a positive and statistically significant impact on EU GDP. The size of the impact understandably varied among the different methodologies, but we clearly see overall a convergence. You see the numbers here in the slides, plus 0.7 resulting from the synthetic control Gorton method. Our Romolo simulations, which is very much of a different type of exercise, which is more of a modeling, therefore prospective, calibrated type of exercise, bring the same results. For our machine learning methods, the result is actually much higher. It's plus 0.5, and there is also positive impact on employment. All these methods also converge in the finding that the impact is heterogeneous. Heterogeneous among regions, and in particular, regions that will receive more funds in general found that greater growth effect if you look especially at the long term. But disparities are not just associated to that, but they're also associated to other parameters, which is like the economic conditions of the different regions and the institutional and administrative capacity of their administration. This is an example in relation to that. I will not spend much time on this. I think our study and staff working document presents some interesting visualization of the impact of our funds at the regional level. Both our macroeconomic model and our counterfactual analysis allowed for the estimation of impact at the regional level. So you can also find your very own region in this. And this is, I think, one of the power of our analysis, which would be, of course, further enhanced if project level data would be fed into this model as compared to aggregated funding as we currently have and was used for this. Where, of course, for allocation, in many instances, in particular national programs, there had to be an allocation per regions which were based on proxy, and normally this was done pro rata, based on population. I've already mentioned this by now: economic environment, quality of institutions, administrative capacity. I think this is the main policy lesson learned. I think this is one of the parts that is very much relevant also for the future and for this very moment. Our staff working documents, but also some of the study develop in details about the issues that are particular in relation to the institution and to administrative capabilities that play the role in hindering the effectiveness of the policies. And this is, at least the administrative capacity part, what calls for further engagement by the Commission in the support by administrative capacity in member states. Some other findings, I will go quickly over this. The element of crowding private investment. My colleague Pascal mentioned financial instruments in the Czech Republic being an issue. This is normally one of the areas in which crowding in of private investment happens or is supposed to happen the most, and which therefore these are those that have the greater impact is considered for the amount of investment made. Continuity of funding was also key that the value. This plays a role, especially also in infrastructural big projects that sometimes, have to rely on multiple programming periods to be completed. The adaptability of the funds. This is a fund that was very much related to REACT-EU and the crisis too. And also, maybe this is something relevant that hopefully will come out in the Q&A. We relied on a series of studies and found that, the administrative costs of delivering cohesion policy are overall modest. This does not mean that things could be simplified further. Actually, they could. And the issue of gold plating, for instance, was an issue that came out very strikingly in the 21-27 midterm. But overall, administrative costs are sustainable as compared to other forms of public funding. And we also define that things like simplified cost option and financing not linked to costs were elements where simplification effectively took place. Ex-ante conditionalities and CSRs, so the preconditions, contributed to funds coherence and improved governance, and also were instrumental in directing investment towards the need. I think this came out quite prominently also from stakeholders' engagement and surveys that were run at CSR, though not all of them were equally followed by all member states. Overall, the link between CSR and funding put some structures and put some directions into the funding. There was coherence across different funding sources, across different programs of the Commission, but it is clear that more coordination is needed, both at the level of the design and also at the level of implementation. I think you could read in this finding a lot of the relationship between the funds in our family, RDF, ESF, Insus Plus, and the Recovery and Resilience Facility, for which coherence and joint implementation was a major challenge for many member states. The REACT-EU part, overall REACT-EU worked and And I think our funds prove effective of being deployed also for short-term recovery-related measures like those addressed in those contexts. The more difficult question is whether in doing so, our fund lost a bit focus about long-term objectives. Our dedicated study develops a lot of all this. The finding in brief is overall no. In all things considered, the deployment of crisis-related measures worked. It created, given the rapid time and scale at which it has to be implemented, it created issues in managing authorities, as you would have expected. We go briefly through the midterm, as my time is ending. This is a very important slide. I think your graph on the left, it shows funding between 86 and 22, so basically from the start. And it shows you how it's a continuous cycle. So you can see in dotted the different programming periods, and you see total cohesion policy payments in each year. And you do see the continuity that there is between the member states. And this also explains our finding about how, security of support is a major issue of effectiveness. And also it tells you while, evaluating single programming period makes sense, but to a point. It's a regulatory requirement. We have a regulation every 7 years from every MFF. So this is how it is. But certain things, like infrastructural things, for instance, could be better evaluated over a longer time period. You also see a big dip here, a big dip in the programming for 21-27. You can also read a bit of RRF in that. The RRF line is not included. But overall, it doesn't change the picture that there is a continuity. You see the implementation of 21-27 and 14-20 on the right. Overall, it was lower, the crisis, the RRF impact. But overall, 3.5 years into implementations, this is at the end of 24, shows that basically the programming period has catch up. This is a slide about simplification, and it tells you by the amount of green how well was considered simplification measure, the different things that are included in the left-hand side. And you can see that simplify cost option, simplified and harmonized the reachability rules, reduce reporting obligations were all considered as elements improving efficiency. I think this is also an important part which our new MFF tried, in a way, new MFF proposal tried to address by simplifying and to pushing elements of financing, not least to cost. We will see in what way. This morning, my boss, Peter, replied to the question. You also see that there are elements, that going down becomes less and less, conducive to simplification. I will not spend much time on this. Maybe the important element here is the EU added value, which is the most difficult criterion of the better regulation of them all. For the midterm, we did found that European fine contributed to the provision of European public good, so bring broad benefit that would not have been brought by investments by single member states, and were also very much aligned and actually fostered alignment of member states' investment into strategic areas and informed by the place-based approach. In also, thanks to its structure and rules, is improved the national investment environment and administrative capacity through the dedicated support in many member states. I've already said all of this, but this summarizes a bit the conclusion. That our policy, being the one policy of the Commission, address at regions and the closest to the territory overall met territorial needs, thanks to the targeting of the fund, the shared management system, and the multi-level governance. Flexibility and adaptation to unforeseen challenges remain an issue for the future. Simplification is important. Some was achieved, looking at 1420 compared to 713, and looking at 2127 compared to 1420. Some more should be possible. I talked about the EU added value. I will not, I think by now the relevance should be clear. Maybe what's important is capacity building and the role of administrative capacity and of the ability of managing authorities to manage the fund as the number one determinants, together with the economic condition of the regions for the effectiveness of the fund. This comes virtually for each and every of the studies. And conversely, limited capacity normally is the number one problem for projects not to be implemented. For what concerns the monitoring system, our findings, let's say a big thematic finding, is more granular and better quality reporting would improve the monitoring and therefore the identification of issues and also the ability to timely address them. But from an evaluation perspective, also it would increase substantially the ability to carry analysis and therefore the policy learning from the deployment of the funds. And this is, I think, one major findings which actually was translated into the new MFF regulations through the single gateway and all that was discussed this morning. This is it. This is where you can find our evaluations. We are currently publishing the studies that go with them. Some have already been published, some more will be recently. We are also redesigning our website for better accessibility of the results. And of course, you can see both all our work, our 3 staff working documents, and the work that we contracted out that consultant did for us. And this ends my presentation. I think I got slightly late, but it was a lot of material. Thank you very much for your attention. And some question now or after the presentation of my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is always hard to comprehensively introduce to such studies because it's huge material. So maybe short time for one question for the from the audience, if there is any.
Sorry. Please.
Václav, EY Czech Republic. Thank you very much for the presentation. I would like to ask you whether you have also focused on the different impact of financial instruments and grants under this evaluation, whether it was a focus, and if so, if you could share some findings or insights in this regard.
NHS?
Financial instruments and grants.
Okay. This, that's a very good question. And what have I done? So the answer to this is no. The answer to this is no, but don't take this no as, you know, as this thing not being important. So there was well, let me rephrase this a bit better. There was an empirical study conducted on SME support where financial instruments were not included in the analysis for issues of homogeneity of the financial instruments introduced across member states. This is a relatively large scale econometric exercise is included in the study called Work Package 6 about SMEs, which finds the positive results that I have shown. The, let's say, role of financial instruments was, and this is the part of the question which is a yes, was looked at into the same work package in a qualitative way. So basically through interviews and case studies. And the finding there was the one that we would expect, is that when actually applied, financial instruments ensured a bigger, let's say, investment and larger crowded-in effects as compared to non-repayable instruments such as grants. We could not replicate this empirically. This is something that we are looking at in DG Regio. I think it's an area of research where, there is a clear literature about this, but we still haven't managed to apply this consistently to our funds. Part of the reasons, having a bit studied the issue, is the uneven take-up of financial instruments across European member states, and also the variety of the ways in which took place. But this is an area that we are looking at to possibly carry out some dedicated studies, because it's an important area. In my directorate, there is a dedicated unit about financial instruments. So this part remains, let's say, a policy focus for Regio and for the Commission overall.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question and for your presentation. And now I will welcome here Miriam Vahtra from Ministry of Finance from Estonia. And as I promised, she will tell us in her presentation about increasing the use of evaluation result, linking with the state budget and public policy discussions. Basically, as I said, Estonia already have this system how evaluation are incorporated in the budget discussion at the Ministry of Finance, and not only in EU funds, but for all state money. So I'm really looking forward to this presentation, and because we are a little bit lack of time, so I will just tell that the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Jana, and thank you to you all. I am, in addition to just coordinating evaluations in the Ministry of Finance, also very passionate about using them. So I'm very excited to discuss it with you all. At first, maybe I would ask you all to think in your head about, let's say, 3 main challenges when you're coordinating evaluations or carrying out evaluations. And let's now talk about data. So would one of them be using systematically the evaluation results, or maybe strategic recommendations and discussing them at political level? If yes, then we share the same challenges and possibly also a lot of same possibilities to actually change something. We have a huge portfolio of evaluations, probably all of us, and what to do with them. So for myself, the wake-up call was from my superior for the deputy head of the fiscal policies. During the state budget process, he called me and said, look, I have in 2 hours a meeting with climate minister, and we have to discuss what to finance and what not, which programs were effective and what not. And please, I need the data from regional development, transport development, climate issues, and you have an hour. Wow, what to do? So basically, luckily at that point, we didn't have so many evaluations, and I knew most of them by heart, the main issues, but today I just wouldn't know how to get this kind of information. So what I learned from this is actually we need the data from several evaluations, not only the one which I commissioned by myself. So I need the others as well, different policy areas, in order to really discuss on evaluation results. Second, I need them on the right time and ad hoc basis if needed. So to really discuss, I need a lot of knowledge. And for these purposes, it's good that we have a portfolio of evaluations, a lot of them. And we actually should build up them to have the cumulative database to discuss on the results. So, and this is maybe one part of the coin that we know well, the cohesion policy evaluations. But this is also not enough, because the politicians during the state budget processes, they do not talk only about cohesion policy funds. They need the whole pictures about the whole national development funds, all the policy fields. So basically what we did, we had to find the solutions to cover the whole national budget. So we knew that we have national development plans, and in these development plans, including the very long-lasting up to 2035 strategy, there are actually the reforms, the main investments that we have to do. Actually, of course, also the country-specific recommendations, but they're all linked. So we have to cover all of them. And we decided that we need one evaluation plan, not only an evaluation plan for cohesion policy, but evaluation plan which would cover the whole state budget. So we agreed this is the way we are going, and this is done. Last year, in 2024, we actually agreed in the monitoring committee that we have this kind of plan, and this evaluation plan now contains both structural funds, cohesion policy funds evaluations, and national ones. And not only that, this is the national fund evaluation and this is the cohesion policy funds, but they are combined. So, for example, I want some kind of knowledge on transport issues, then I know everything about transport, for local transport, for investments that have been done from cohesion policy, and I get the whole picture from one evaluation. So this is the pictures that we now have in the evaluation plan, everything. And in the beginning of 2024, actually all of the ministries got the information that we have ahead the planning of future financing period. And actually one of the filters for this period, choosing the reforms and investments, would be evaluations. So the filter is evaluations. If you have evaluation results, you are better off. So the result is that almost all policy areas are actually covered with evaluations. The filter, possibility to be financed, evaluations are there. So, they are ready by end of June next year. So a lot of them, almost all policy fields, because they want actually their results to be used. And why end of June? Why not some other point in time? But this is because we need to align it all with state budget process. When the state budget is discussed in August, and we don't really work in July, then they must be ready by end of June. So this is the way we are going. All of the results will come to the extent possible. Of course, they're not, everything can't be aligned, but to the extent possible, by that point in time, we can discuss it during the state budget process and also while choosing the reform and investment for the next period. So the drawer, can we put something into the drawer and forget? The drawer might be a good point, but we would have to know when to take it out, when to open the drawer, what is there, and what we can use. So maybe the drawer is not so bad always, but just don't forget it. And the time is the essence, really. If you have to know what you have and when to use it. So this is maybe the main points that I got from this wake-up call. Now, in order this all to work, we had to do a lot of harmonizing work between the ministries. Some had a lot of experience from the cohesion policy funds, some didn't, so we had to work together. People who have done evaluations were in the evaluation working group, and the people who actually had maybe less experience, but they are rather at high level. So the strategy units, directors, head of the units, even higher, who are actually responsible for the strategies in these specific ministries. We had meetings together, 2 working groups, and when an evaluation is planned, then we comment the terms of references, just to find out maybe we have some common issues, maybe I can have some points in the evaluation of social ministry. Maybe I have some key points that I want to have, because, for example, we are responsible for the horizontal principles. So I have some comments that I want to be included in their evaluation, and I have the possibility. And what we actually did, we agreed on 10 main points that should be covered in all of these evaluations. One of them was that all the evaluations should have their results presented in 3 main categories, recommendations in 3 main categories. One of them would be what is the budgetary impact? So what could be actually the points where we could cut? So the government wants to talk about cuts. So we must say that, look, this is not efficient. Here is the point we can really cut. So this must be provided in every evaluation. Where is the possibility to cut? In addition, which are the strategic recommendations? Which are relevant enough that I really need to go to the government? Because next year we have so many evaluations, couple of sessions with the government. I can't just cover everything. So we need to agree the top 5 in this evaluation: the budget, strategic discussion, and the third actually is preparation for the next financing period. So to select out the priorities in this sector. The next are some of the good practices that have been in the cohesion policy evaluations, and just that the other would look like almost the same. The validation seminars. Quite often the politicians and policymakers say that, look, external experts, they don't understand really us. We have the political issues, we have the public sector differences, you don't really know, so we can't really accept your recommendations. But we had these validation seminars when the report was more or less, the ideas were there, and they were discussed. All of these potential users were there so that they would actually accept or maybe let us know that this really doesn't work. Look again. So this was important. And we had information seminars. So every time an evaluation is finalized, we have the discussion. We take out from this, as I mentioned, 5 critical recommendations, the ones that we consider that need a quick response, quick follow-up, but maybe are not so easy. So to discuss these, the solution for these, we had these information seminars. In addition, it's important that the data would be very easily understandable. So the one-pagers are important. All evaluations, cohesion policy or national ones should have these one-pagers. And if possible, some more IT tools to present the results would be even better, but it's not always so easy. So the follow-up activities, what we actually do is, as I mentioned, the time is of essence. So we have in our web page all of the evaluations, and not only the reports, but the recommendations are taken out of them. So I have very little time and I need the results on transport issues. I go to the web page and I put there transport. And I get every recommendation that is related to transport. It may be in the evaluation of the regional development, it may be in the ICT, in the midterm, in the export, wherever. And I get quickly, well, this and this and this evaluation. Then I open the evaluation and I see that, fine, this was the recommendation, this was the follow-up activity, because the follow-up activities are also there. And I know what actually was recommended, what was done, and I can take my own decisions, whether these are relevant to me or maybe not. And the follow-up activities are also renewed every at least 6 months. So if you see the information there at the moment, it may reflect not the very first follow-up activity, but maybe what was done in a little bit later stage. So this kind of using the data on the web page, searching, this enables us to really respond quickly. And it's not very well seen in this picture, but okay, I'll try to cover it. The spending review process. We consider evaluations and spending reviews also together. We have approximately 2 to 5 spending review projects in a year. And spending reviews are actually very attractive to the government level, to the policies, because this is actually the cut related and the finances related. So, but you should keep in mind that you can't cut everywhere. So you can cut only in the places where it doesn't do any harm to some kind of other policy or measure or activity. So you have to take on board also the data from the evaluations. What is efficient, what is effective, what works, what not, and to whom, and under which conditions, as we know. So when the terms of references for the spending reviews are written, they always look at the evaluations, what are done. And luckily for us, we are in the same department. So we sit together. Now we are starting a spending review, or vice versa. Now we are starting an evaluation. And I want to know all the financial analysis that can be in the spending review report. And I take it on board, and I can do a much better quality evaluation as well. As I mentioned, two groups of people have to work together, and these are then the head of strategy units and evaluation working groups. At first, we had a lot of evaluations. We had at national level 16 large-scale strategies, and we had 32 evaluations of cohesion policy evaluations. And when we put these all into one evaluation plan, now we have only 4 evaluations that cover only national funds. The rest are all combined evaluations which inform all of the processes. And how the evaluations move along the line towards the state budget process. If I have this kind of combined evaluation or only cohesion policy evaluation, then I move towards actually the traditional line. So I go to the monitoring committee and I go to the European Commission level, but this is not only, it was maybe the used to be solution. Now we also, in addition to this commission line, we also go to the government line. So this means we have to go to the state budget revision official steering group. And this is the group of people with the high representatives of Ministry of Finance or the Fiscal Council, Government Office, and also Foresight Center. So the people who really know about evaluations, and the aim is that they know what's on the ground happening, know all of the evaluations. And now when I have my 5, my key recommendations, then I go to this board of people, this group of people, and discuss with them. And they help me to decide what is important enough to really go to the government, because the time is of essence, the interest is of essence. And when this is decided, then it goes to the state budget. And to the state budget, the information is given by the deputy head of the fiscal policies. So I'm not going by myself, maybe I'm not so interesting for the government, but the head of the fiscal policy definitely is. So he's taking the most relevant recommendations to there, and we'll see what's happened each time. And maybe the full potential will be seen next year, because this is really where the heavy discussions will start for the next period. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. Again, you have a chance to ask some extra question to our speaker. Any question? If not, actually I have, because I would like to know how did you persuade all the relevant ministries and other stakeholders that you will have one national evaluation plan, because I can imagine that this is not easy task. So how did you do it? How did you proceed? Maybe what challenges did you face?
Well, it really wasn't an easy task. And it started very early when I wanted to have the international regulation that you have to do the evaluations. So first of all, they have to have the initial requirement to do an evaluation. And then luckily I have the deputy head of fiscal policy is very innovative. So for him, it's important to really use the results. And the government office is also responsible for the whole coordination of strategies. So we have a a possibility. We are really in the state budget department. Evaluations are very close to the state budget, and we have the support from the government office. So these were the quite good preconditions.
And maybe one more, because we have very similar, as you show that you have all these. Oh, okay, there is a question. So, no. Just a minute for a mic. It's coming.
Okay, Piotr Szymboszewski, National Evaluation Unit in Poland. I'm wondering, do you have also kind of monitoring system for these national domestic policies? Because in cohesion policy, we have both, and thanks to monitoring, we have, so maybe, thank you. We have evaluation. And in Poland, we have a huge problem with data for evaluation of domestic actions. So what's about the monitoring system, database, and things like that?
Actually, we have the government action plan, and it is being agreed that the most relevant top findings that have been discussed by the government will be also monitored through this government action plan, which is followed. And the second, it's also agreed that we have everything together in one web page, which means that the national ones will be also followed up by this table as I showed, so recommendations and follow-ups, because as I mentioned, these are combined evaluations, so they have to have the same rules.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. And we will move to the last but not least presenter today, which is Marina Pereira Lopez. She will join us online. She's from World Bank, and she will tell us a little bit more about these two randomized control trials conducted in the Czech Republic, which evaluated firm-level intervention aimed at accelerating the transition to more resilient and knowledge-oriented economies. And as I said, it was done in the operation program Just Transition. And because European Commission for the next programming period will push more for this experimental method, we ask actually World Bank to share this experience which was done in the Czech Republic with us, because we will need to build on this experience, I think, more in upcoming years, and to use experimental more. And unfortunately, until now, I think we don't have enough experience with it. So I hope we are online. Mariana, I hope we can hear each other. And if yes, the floor is yours.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, and we can see you, and we can see your presentation.
You can see, no, I don't have my presentation here, no. Yeah, it's
so
not.
Just a minute, we will do some changes, and
yeah, it's not letting me share. For some reason, my screen. I think because you're presenting, probably.
Give us just a few seconds.
Sure.
Okay, so maybe you should share the presentation.
Yeah,
if you can try to share it.
I think right now it's not allowing me to share. I click the share and it's not letting me, because maybe because you are presenting. Maybe if you stop presenting.
So it is possible that we will use the presentation for you, and you will comment it. Would it?
Yeah, that's whatever works. So maybe that's fine.
Maybe we will go this way because...
Yeah, whatever is easier. I don't have any. I think you have it there, yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, this is it, and we can click it for you. Yeah?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I will just say next, and that's it. Okay. Well, thank you so much for inviting me to present. I mean, we're very excited about these two projects, and also, I mean, we're very grateful to our partners, the different innovation centers, MSIC, ISUC, CARP, the regional authorities, and also the Ministry of Environment, who really supported us on this, and of course the European Commission, who supported these evaluations. So basically, I mean, I think I don't need to give a lot of background, but I mean, in general, like, I mean, you are all aware of this, the importance of evaluating these, like the cohesion policy, and I mean, of increasing this culture of evaluation. So basically, that's why we partnered with DG Regio to launch this initiative to strengthen the monitoring and evaluation of innovation programs across the European Union. And that's how this project happened, because these different institutions applied for these projects to really build capabilities and start implementing this kind of evaluations. So basically what we did is we implemented these two randomized controlled trials in 3 regions of the Czech Republic: Ústí, Karlovy Vary, and the Moravian Silesian region. I mean, Ústí and Karlovy Vary go together, and the other one is a separate project. So I will present a little bit the results. Sorry, I'm not going to be very detailed, but we have reports explaining in detail each of these evaluations if you're interested, and I can share the links after. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Yeah, I will present first the project that we implemented in Ústí and Karlovy Vary, which is focused on building capabilities for AI use and AI adoption among SMEs. Next, please. So basically, I mean, how we started with some field work, like back in 2022, and a pilot to try to identify what were the main constraints among these firms. Well, basically we identified at least like 3 different constraints, which are basically like, first, like the lack of awareness and engagement with these like new technologies. Also, we found like a little bit of, I mean, even though people are really capable and skilled in these regions, we found that they didn't know how to adopt like advanced tools. And also we found like a little bit of a low trust culture, like they weren't super keen on collaborating and trying to pursue innovation in a more collaborative way. So basically what we thought is like, can AI help us to basically address these barriers and basically generate growth? And whether it would work in a group-based environment, let's say like through peer learning. And I mean, what we found from the literature is that basically, I mean, AI seems to be like very good for innovation. It doesn't require like big capital investments. It allows you to experiment. I mean, I would say in a cost-effective way, because it's relatively low cost to experiment using AI. Also, it basically exposes like workers to I would say tacit knowledge of even, for example, if you're low skilled, it basically gives you exposure to knowledge like from more skilled people, like in an easy way. And it doesn't require like a lot of organizational changes. So we thought like in a way it would be like, it wouldn't be very invasive for firms to adopt this. So that's why we decided to go with an AI intervention, and we piloted it. Yeah, next, please. Thank you. So basically what we organize, I mean, in collaboration with ISUC and CARP, which are the innovation centers, and with support from the regional authorities, this AI club, which is like a series of AI focused workshops. So basically, I mean, in this slide, I'm summarizing this project in general, just in case I run out of time. So this is an RCT with 168 firms. And the idea is like to measure the short-term impacts of technology adoption, innovation, innovation, networks, and firm performance. So what we find is like, I mean, the use of AI increases significantly. We have a 26% increase overall, but we have, as we are doing this, I mean, one of the characteristics of this project is that it's very focused on certain business functions, let's say. So we find the biggest increases in customer management and product development, which is very tied to it's part of the innovation process. We also find like they increase in AI effectiveness, like there are like 47% increase in productivity gains, especially for marketing and customer management. We also find like good results in terms of innovation, with 55% increase in innovation-related changes, especially at the worker level, and also in terms of organization and changes. But I mean, in general, it goes across, even for external innovation. I will explain this further later. Also, we find increase in business networks and connections, and finally, in terms of growth, we're still working on this part of the evaluation, like trying to improve the data that we have. But I mean, at least we observe like an important increase in the growth index, even in the short term. And this is a very cost-effective intervention. Like we almost recover the full cost of the intervention, like within 1 month. The cost is about like 500 euros, which I think it's relatively low cost. Can we go to the next slide? So after summarizing, I mean, the idea of the project, how it works, it was designed, I mean, we worked a lot during the pilot to really try to fine tune the different aspects of the project. And I think this is, I mean, even thinking on a broad literature point of view, like in research, this is a very innovative project, because in general, most of the impact evaluations on AI, which is like a trending topic right now in terms of economic research, have been focused more like on workers and how you try to measure productivity, like you give AI to some workers and not to others. But I think, or mostly like in a controlled way, like there are certain tasks. So this project, I think it has like two nice innovations that I think are quite unique to this moment, which is like we did like not AI like broadly, but we focus on really like certain tasks or certain business functions of SMEs. So the idea is like for efficiency, for productivity, let's say, for marketing, for sales, how do you use it for innovation? How do you use it for financial management? So that's an interesting way. And the other one is that it's not controlled. Like I mean, we're not controlling like the tasks. Like I mean, once they learn how to use it, they can use it in any way they prefer. And so, yeah, I think these three aspects are like the key innovations of this project. And also, like we included like some peer-to-peer knowledge sharing, because these are like group-based interventions. So they are in a group and they exchange and they have like practical applications. And one of the main features is like, it's not like we only explain broadly like how to use. We gave them licenses to use AI. We put like hands-on exercise. We try to tailor as much as possible the exercise to cater for some of the people that attended these workshops and the SMEs. So in a sense, like I think this is a very nice and innovative project. Can we go to the next slide, please? So in terms of, in general, like the target population for this project are SMEs by European Union definition, firms located in Usti and Karlovy Vary. We allowed all sectors, and we reach out to firms like through email campaigns. We found like some organizations like some organizations who allowed us to disseminate, like commerce organizations, and we sent including newsletters in the websites of our partners. We had nice websites. And also we included some, I mean, with support from the regional authorities, some of the applicants for innovation vouchers, an innovation voucher scheme that had been launched. So we have a few of our firms, a small group of our firms are part of these innovation vouchers too. And so basically we randomized, as in any RCT, so we had like 2/3 we put them into treatment and 1/3 into control. Why it's not 50-50? Because the idea was, or still is, depending on funding, of course, to have an additional intervention for one group, like on top of what we did for the treatment group, to try to see if we can even get stronger effects. But I mean, due to budget constraints, we started with this configuration, like 2/3 and 1/3, to try to make sure that we were not risking the project by doing 50-50, and that it would allow us to later follow up with a stronger intervention for one treatment arm, let's say. In general, in terms of take-up, I think we had like a very good rate of take-up, like 79% of the firms attended at least one workshop, and 61% attended 3 or more, which, I mean, in general is a good rate. And they got like, mostly the ones that got like the highest attendance were the ones related to productivity itself and marketing in general, and in third place, the innovation one. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So here I'm showing you the short-term impact in terms of AI adoption across business function. So, I mean, in the first columns, we have like the overall AI adoption. So we see like a 26% increase in overall AI, but we see the biggest effects basically in customer management and product development, though it's not super clear, the effects are still statistically significant. But I mean, in general, like they all show increases, but with different magnitudes, let's say. So, I mean, the treatment group is doing much better in terms of AI adoption across all these business functions. Can we go to the next slide, please? So we tried to analyze, like, and we got like, I mean, the good thing is like now we can analyze like these open-ended questions. So basically we asked them, how are you using AI after the intervention? And I mean, you can see like the cloud is a little bit smaller for the control just because the number of observations is lower. But in general, like the pattern that we observe is that the control group still uses, I mean, they are using AI, some of them, but it's more like for correcting text, writing emails, which are like the basic use cases for AI, like how we're using, like we go to ChatGPT and we say like, please improve my email, the write-up of my email, or like some text improvements. But on the other hand, we see that the treatment group, they are using for more, I would say, like business-oriented purposes, like they are using for marketing, they are using, I mean, for data analysis, for brainstorming, for programming. So they are trying to give like more purpose, like related to business than the other ones. Which we think is a nice result from this intervention, in the short term at least. So this is for the product development, which is basically more related to innovation. So what we did here, and we did for all the different business functions and for all the open-ended questions we have, I'm just showing some small results because I don't have much time, but I mean, I just wanted to get you like the broad idea of the project. But I mean, we did like LLM-based text analysis, which basically, I mean, we put into, let's say, ChatGPT with some prompting, like to try to explain that we have different groups. Of course, we don't say which one is the treatment, which one is control. I mean, we actually try to reverse it to make it look like it's the other way around. Just we don't mention the impact evaluation, we just ask to compare. And what we observe is like the control group is still like in a very basic thing, like, okay, help, like aid for, let's say, some routine activities or routine tasks, while the treatment group is already thinking differently about AI, like for research, like for analysis, like product development, brainstorming, and other tasks. So we see how like they use it, like the control group still use it like as any person would use AI, like, oh, it's going to improve my write-up, or it's going to how can I say, reduce the time I use for writing stuff. But here, on the other hand, like the treatment group, they are thinking strategically about how to use AI for productivity, which and they are thinking on how it can help their innovation process. So, I mean, we already observed like some change in terms of mindset, and the other group is more like operational, like on structure, I would say. Can we go to the next slide? This is explicitly how it worked in terms of innovation. So we already see, like in terms of adoption, like or changes in business. This is mostly. We see like that there are changes in innovation, in the process of innovation, in all aspects, and especially we see in individual changes, like people are more data-driven in their way of thinking, and they are using AI for the regular work. There's also use of AI for organizational changes, which is the internal part. But they are also using AI to try to reach customers, to try to improve their outreach and their customers, and getting more leads, etc. So in general, we observe like good results in terms of innovation, even in a very short period of time. Can we go to the next slide? So basically, I mean, key takeaways of these projects is that like the AI Club basically accelerated the innovation through this very guided, focused approach. And I mean, the idea is like these workshops allow them to get both explicit and tacit knowledge using AI to specific business function. We observe these increases in product and process innovation. So they are using LLMs or the different AI products to try to get further in their entrepreneurial discovery process and for different activities. And this project, I think it's a very cost-effective, scalable solution that can help foster innovation. I mean, this is like a short series of workshops. So in general, I think basically what it does is like it breaks the cost of understanding how these technologies can be used like for daily purposes and for the different business functions. In terms of next steps for our project, we're trying to gather more data, like admin data, and to work further on our text analysis of the more qualitative and open-ended questions. We're also considering a phase 2, but that's conditional on funding. As I mentioned, like we divided the group in 2/3 versus 1/3. So we still could do something with 1/3 with that group of the treatment. But of course, like at this moment, we're seeking funding for doing that. And also we are considering some additional data collection to try to see like if the effects persist over time. So can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so I'm going to talk very quickly about the other project that we're doing, which is very different in nature because this one caters to more early stage firms in the Moravian Silesian region. So can we go to the next slide? So to explain it quickly, this is a program, as you can see, like the sample is slightly larger. So basically it's an RCT that goes to 246 early stage entrepreneurs and SMEs in this region. And this project consists of 2 phases. Like in this one, we already managed to do like the 2 phases. So there's one that is called Startup Success. Commercially, it's called Smart Start for the firms. So basically the idea is like this part, it includes hard and soft skills, but the idea is to help entrepreneurs develop a minimum viable product. And it has a nice focus, which is on structure and scientific decision making. So basically you have hypotheses, you test them, and you make sure that your product is viable, let's say. And it has a second phase, which is basically about scaling up. Okay, now that you found your idea and you have a minimum viable product, how am I going to get more clients? And that includes a CRM component, some training, and some one-on-one coaching to optimize this sale process. So in a way, like, this project tries to target like growing ambition, and it combines mindset, a mindset intervention, soft skills with hard skills to try to influence entry and access to markets. And this is one, I would say, like, there are only a few projects that are really focused a lot on sales, which is our phase 2. And I mean, that's very innovative as a project. So what we see, this is like a summary phase. We see some effects already in the go-to-market strategies. I will extend further quickly. But we still don't see so much in terms of like the part about operations of the firm. Yeah, I will explain a little further. So just to quickly summarize, can we go back to the previous slide? Please, yeah. Just to explain quickly how is this project is designed. We had like these 246 entrepreneurs. So basically we have like 3 groups. One is the control group that they don't get anything for now. I mean, eventually they are already, let's say, approved for this project, but they will get it later on. So we have like this first group that it gets the startup success, which is like soft and hard skills. They get these sessions on structured decision making, hypothesis testing, A/B testing, business model canvas. And later on, they get like this second phase, which is about like scaling up and finding clients and getting leads and the sales funnel and understanding like getting achievable and measurable sales milestones. And we have the group in the middle that they only receive the first phase. So basically, we can see the different and the additional value of the second phase, because we have like these 3 groups. So we can see the incremental value of the startup success and the incremental value of the scaling success. In general, we had like very good take-up rates for this project. Like 81% of the businesses attended at least one session and 60% completed the program. This program, compared to the other one, is much more intensive, and they have to do even like some sort of like homework or work out of the classroom. In the other one, it was like more like, I would say, free, that they could experiment and play around with the AI tools because we gave them licenses. In this case, it's different because it's a more structured curriculum, and they have to do some homework. They have to interview people. They have to get some information to collect. They have to test stuff. So this is a little bit more intensive. So I think the take-up rate is pretty good. So can we go to the next slide? So similar to what we did with the other project, we tried to analyze like how it works in terms of like the control, like learning about the business, how it changed between the control and the treatment group. And here what we see, it's interesting because we start seeing like in the other one, it's a lot about efforts. I need to work, I need to experience, I need to learn. And in the other, in the treatment group, we already see like stuff like testing, like minimum viable product, like problems. So we see different, like focus, a little bit more focus on customers. So that's a difference that we already, and they're talking more about marketing. So it's a more structured approach again for the treatment group. Can we move to the next slide? And when we do again like this LLM-based text analysis, we already see like they are more structured in terms of like the treatment group. They're structured, strategic. They think about the business. They know more tools like the business model canvas. They already think about customer journey. So they are already changing their mindset in terms of like, oh, I need to test. I need to do differently. I need to have a strategy. I need to have like some structure and have models and etc. So, and especially in the part of customers, like they are really focused on testing, understanding their needs and refining their offerings, which is an interesting part of this experimentation and scientific thinking, let's say. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, so here we can see like the change in go-to-markets, which basically is focused like target the customers, like the selling channels, the product offerings, and we have a measure like a measure at the end that basically summarizes all these three, like targeting customers, selling channels, and product offerings. And we see that in all cases, we already see significant results in terms of the intensity of these activities. So they are already, especially in selling channels, they are already implementing some changes in go-to-market activities as a result of the program. Can we go to the next slide? However, when we think more about like production operations, we don't observe some like changes yet. I mean, it could be because the program is very much targeted in on this like minimum viable product and what you're going to sell and what you're offering. But in general, we don't see, I mean, only in other processes, which, I mean, we need to disentangle more what that means. But I mean, though we see some sort of improvement, because in most cases you see like let's say the red bar is higher than the blue bar, we don't see yet much effects. I mean, one of our hypotheses that we need to test further is that these are very early stage entrepreneurs. So basically, I mean, they are changing a little bit like their target and their customers, but they are not yet like, they're not yet thinking about like more operational thing because they're a very early stage. So can we go to the next slide? And I mean, of course, it's important we see these changes, but it's important to know what's the channel that drives these changes. And in all cases, we see that it is the program. I mean, we asked to the control group if they're taking programs. We asked if they were doing external events, if it's industry inspired. I mean, just to make sure that it is indeed about the program. And I mean, that's how it looks like, that it is the program that is basically triggering these changes that we observe, especially in the go-to-market activities. So if we can go to the next slide. So, well, summarizing the results of these programs, like we observe like these behavioral catalysts, like they adopted this like more entrepreneurial, experimental mindset, and they are more willing to test and to try different things, and that basically it's impacting the go-to-market strategies that we already see like some growth. But on the other hand, we observe, as I mentioned, like these lagged operational effects, which we attribute that maybe it's because they are more early stage. Like I mean, we have a few SMEs, but mostly I would say these are early stage entrepreneurs. And yeah, like the results are driven by the program. And once again, this is a very cost-effective program, because if we think like the cost is about like 350 euros per participant, so what we estimate so far is like a big return already like over the first month. So it's very cost-effective the way the program is implemented. So just to finalize, thanks. So basically what we find like in general across the two programs is like this targeted capacity building for entrepreneurs. It really delivers measurable short-term gains in terms of like adoption of technology or like sales and innovation. We see like these networks, especially from the first project, amplify the effects through peer exchange. But we also, here's also a group, the one I just mentioned is also a group-based intervention. So they are exchanging and they are learning from peers, which is really nice. And these programs are very cost-effective and scalable. For example, and they have strong potential in these transition regions. And I mean, they are so scalable and cost-effective that some of these innovation centers, they are considering to keep the program going even after, I mean, we finished our intervention. So right now we're working on operational manuals and especially on the Moravian Silesian region, and they are going to continue with this program because they see the value, and I mean, through evaluation we have proved that the program has a value for entrepreneurs. So our next step in both projects is to try to see like if the impacts persist, and if possible in the first project about AI to try to implement a second phase. In the other one, as I mentioned, we already implemented, and we are seeing nice results I mean, we don't have them yet because we're finishing the implementation, but we are seeing already nice results. And I would like to emphasize that I think I would say a big benefit of these projects is that we managed to engage with these organizations, and I think in a way, like, I mean, they should be able, because we were like in constant contact as we implemented this evaluation, of course, with support from academics. But I mean, they already, I would say, they built capability, internal capability, and I know they can, I mean, in the future, implement more impact evaluations like these to really try to test what works and what doesn't work in their activities. And I think that's a nice feature of this program supported by the European Commission and the World Bank, that we're also building capabilities. I mean, we get nice results, which is good that we managed to evaluate these programs, but we're also building capabilities. And I mean, the different innovation centers, MSIC, ISUC, CARB, the regional authorities, they were really nice and they were really engaged. And I think this is a nice learning process. So thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I will ask audience if there is any questions. Because actually I have 2 quick questions before the coffee break. I would like to ask you how long it took to do these. You can mention one of these studies, like how long do we need for such experimental evaluation? And the second question, because this is always tricky, the ethical aspect. When you do like treatment and control group, at least in our case, normally you have some selection criteria, how to select the project. So how did you choose that which firm or companies receive the treatment, and how did you justify that some didn't receive the treatment? So maybe just 2 quick answers for these questions. Thank you.
Okay, in terms of length, I mean, we started like late 2022. We started with some pilots because, I mean, I think it was more like because of how the process of the different projects was going. For example, we worked with the innovation centers to basically present a proposal for the impact evaluation and the program. It was selected, and then we started piloting. So, I mean, it took, I would say, like almost 2 years, a little bit more than 2 years, but just because, I mean, we were following that process. I think, I mean, times could be shortened if we were like out of this, like, I would say, like institutional setting where you need to go through different process and then like to basically get funding, let's say. Like, I think if the funding is secure, like you can really implement like much faster. But I mean, I think even if you implement it faster, it's always important to pilot things, because we learned a lot from piloting these things. Like, for example, that we needed more flexible times, like for the different workshops. We learned that the content in the first iteration of the AI project, it wasn't that interesting for entrepreneurs. So we adjusted, and that's how we became more targeted and more hands-on and more practical, I would say. So that's how it worked. In terms of the ethical implications, I mean, I think in this case it's easy because, I mean, we had certain budget, and unfortunately, I mean, if we didn't have like any constraints, I mean, of course, I would like to give or offer these supports to every entrepreneur in the region and make sure that they get this. But the problem is that we had some budget constraints, and we have like some firms that, I mean, complied with the criteria. So in a way, like randomizing, I think it's a fair process for allocating this thing. I mean, I know like in general, most programs, they try to do like first come, first served, but I mean, I think like randomizing is as fair as it can get, because I mean, sometimes, I don't know, maybe I don't have a computer and I didn't manage to put my application first than everyone else. So in a way, it's not totally unfair to randomize, I would say, especially when you have like oversubscription and you have like some budget constraints that you cannot support everyone. I mean, in general, in terms of RCTs, of course, if we had, think about like poverty programs, if we had like enough resources to support everyone, it would be unethical not to do it. But I mean, unfortunately, like, programs have some constraints, and I think randomizing is a fair way to do it, and it allows us to evaluate. And having said that, I mean, we plan, and in partnership with some of these innovation centers, to provide this program to others, like to the control group eventually. So basically, we're not really denying the program to the control group. We are basically delaying it a bit because of budget constraints. That's it.
Thank you very much. Thank you that you joined us online for your time, because we know that your time frame is very different from us. And thank you also to the audience. And now we will have a coffee break. And also thank to our panelists. So
Thank
see
you
you.
so much. Bye.